Conor McGregor posted a statement earlier today unveiling the injury that forced him out of UFC 303 against Michael Chandler. But there was a lot of little hints and subtleties in this statement. And there's actually a couple statements that we're going to take a look at in this video. But one of the things that he implied in his first statement that we're going to take a look at is he may return and not even fight Michael Chandler after stringing him along for damn near 2 years. Now, in another statement that we're going to take a look at, he talks about Michael Chandler's hypothetical red panty night and what that would mean and what that would look like for Michael Chandler. And a lot of people have sent it to me and said, Joey, you're wrong about Chandler getting paid. So we're going to unpack that in this video as well. But I'm going to give you my reaction to the injury because there's been a bit of backlash from the injury. We're going to take a look at what Rafael Dos Anjos had to say, what Islam Makhachev had to say, what UFC shill and Dana White sycophant Chael Sonnen had to say. Because Chael outright admitted, look, I'm an ultimate UFC shill. Even when the UFC's not asking me to shill, I start making up shit to shill for the UFC and attempt to make them look better. So we're going to expose Chael Sonnen in this video as well. And lastly, last thing we're going to do in this video is look at some cryptic tweets from Michael Chandler that has kind of started like the very beginning of a theory that I have surrounding what may be going on behind the scenes and what may be next for Michael Chandler, even though he has one dude on his mind. So you guys know me. I like to go to original sources to start it off, but unfortunately, Conor McGregor blocked me. About a year, maybe 8 to 10 months ago, Conor McGregor was liking videos on Twitter of a man explicitly masturbating. Now, I talked about this briefly in a video. I mentioned it. I tweeted about it once. I don't believe I've ever tagged Conor in anything, but I guess he saw that. You know, Conor McGregor has one dude on his mind. This was before Chandler even said that Conor had one dude on his mind, at least in his Twitter likes. And I guess Conor's management team saw that and blocked me. So we can't look at Conor McGregor's official Twitter. I believe some of this he posted on Instagram, but either way, I'm just going to go to MMA Fighting to show you the statements. This is the official statement from Conor McGregor where he unveils the injury. And also, listen to the very end very closely what he mentions about Michael Chandler, because I'm imagining Michael Chandler reading this and kind of starting to get a smile, and then getting absolutely depressed and popping in his Creed CD right at the end of the statement. So listen to this. He says, man, we are so fucking super ready for this fight. It is absolutely gut-wrenching to take. I want the new Bugatti. How I go and justify to myself getting that now without banking these fights. We had a lapse in concentration and engaged in a training session without wearing the full protective gear, and I hit the toe off the elbow and broke the toe clean. So a broken toe is what forced Conor McGregor out. We're going to look at pictures of it in a second. It needed a few weeks, that's it. I couldn't justify to my team or fans that I make the walk hindered again. The walk has been seen. The next walk has got to be and will be 100% Conor McGregor. The fans deserve it, and we are getting close. A slight lapse in concentration and a nuisance of an injury was picked up. That's it. Take the lesson and move forward. I will get this back. I've got to. I've got 2 fights left on my contract. I've got Bugattis and more yachts on my mind. I'm coming to shine. I just got to take my time because I still got yachts and Bentleys and mansions and all the rest. You know yourself. But yeah, get me. I'll be back. See you soon. See you at the top. Chandler or not. Let me repeat that. Chandler or not. Hashtag McG, the real BMF. Hashtag McGregor forever. Hashtag going nowhere. Imagine you're Chandler and you're reading this and you're saying, oh, just a couple weeks and I'll definitely be back and this and that. And then he says Chandler or not at the end. Chandler has to be 6 feet from the edge. And I think this statement is just another way for Conor McGregor to manipulate Michael Chandler in the public eye. And it's disgusting. It's disgusting that Conor's doing this. I wouldn't want to dare disrespect Michael Chandler by feeling sorry for him. But this is more mental warfare from Conor McGregor. But what I want to point out here very clearly is this is the 17th, I was going to say umpteenth time that he mentioned it. I've got 2 fights left on my contract. How many times is Conor going to mention his contract? In the last, 2 to 3 months, I said he probably mentioned it 20 times. He's got 2 fights left on his deal. All he cares about is Bugattis and mansions and this and that. So he wants to make the most money possible, obviously. It doesn't sound, honestly, what I get from this statement is he's probably leaving the UFC. He's going to get a couple fights in and then leave the UFC to go to Saudi Arabia and make a lot of money. But one of the biggest takeaways from this and what Conor McGregor has suffered a little bit of backlash from is he broke his toe. He broke his toe. Now, which toe, you might ask? He posted some pictures of which toe it was. Conor McGregor was forced out of UFC 303 with a broken pinky toe. There's an image of it. Here's an image of it. Here's an x-ray of it. See, it's broken right there. You can see the crack right there. And, you know, he's started to get a bit of backlash for this. You know, people are like, you broke your pinky toe? You know, I think Chael Sonnen even called him a bitch. We're going to take a look at that clip here in a second. You broke your pinky toe? Now, I'm going to tell you this right now. Initially, I just laughed hysterically. My initial reaction to this was me just laughing hysterically. So you strung Michael Chandler along for damn near 2 years to get 3 weeks out from the fight date to pull out with a pinky toe. I'm not going to lie. I don't really have any evidence to support any conspiracy type claim. But I'm being honest with you guys. You know, I always tell you, look, I'm just honest to you. I'm honest with what I'm thinking. Sometimes it may be harsh. Sometimes it may be this. It may be that. I'm just honest with you. One of my first initial thoughts after laughing my ass off the fact that he pulled out with a pinky toe, just the optics of it, was, you know, I feel like this could be a conspiracy. He's pulling out with a pinky toe injury. You know, is this somehow like, related to contract negotiations? Is this somehow trying to stall out for his sunset clause? For those of you who don't know, depending on when Conor signed his contract, there's a sunset clause of 5 years. So the day you sign, it's changed a little bit since then, but the day you sign your contract, you are free to get out of your contract exactly 5 years later. So let's say he signed it in early 2020, the sunset clause would be coming up in early 2025. Let's say he signed it in late 2019, the sunset clause would be coming up late this year. Now, I have no evidence to support that is what he's doing here. I mean, it appears he does have a broken toe. You see the x-ray, everything like that. But the Conor McGregor that was known for, he doesn't pull out due to anything. You know, he fights with an injured knee, this and that. This just doesn't just match up with Conor McGregor, to be honest. And I haven't seen that much fan backlash. I'm sure there's probably more than I've seen. I haven't been online a whole lot today. But there's definitely been some fighter backlash from Rafael dos Anjos. Rafael dos Anjos, former lightweight champion, posted, that's the difference between me and you, Conor, and you finally exposed. You got that pinky toe injury while I got a broken foot. And he goes on a little bit more, but that doesn't matter. And this is a picture of a broken foot of Rafael dos Anjos and a picture of Conor McGregor's broken toe. And the reason Rafael dos Anjos posted this is because back in 2016, these guys were supposed to fight. And dos Anjos pulled out with a broken foot, and Conor McGregor made fun of him and basically called him a bitch and said, oh, you got a bruised foot. It just looks like a bruise. You had to pull out of the fight, and made fun of him. So this tweet from dos Anjos, this is 8 years in the making here. This is 8 years. I mean, the optics of pulling out with a broken toe are not good at all. And I'm going to give my reaction on that in a second, but I just want to show you some of the fighter reaction. Here's Islam Makhachev's reaction. He says, and my condolences. Well, here he said, you don't need a pinky toe for a fight, chicken. And then he says, and my condolence to Michael Chandler. And a lot of people were wondering, what is Hachiko? So I looked it up. And this was just a dig at Chandler. And it says, Hachiko was a Japanese Akita dog, remembered for his remarkable loyalty to his owner. And then his owner's name, for whom he continued to wait over 9 years following the guy's death. So he's just kind of getting a dig at Chandler, waiting around for Conor McGregor's pinky toe to heal. That's essentially what Islam Makhachev is doing here. Just kind of getting a dig at Chandler for waiting around, doing nothing. Which is hilarious that it's just honestly sad that it's come to this where it's like, okay, what's he going to wait another year? I mean, at this point, the sunk cost fallacy has him in a death grip. But anyway, back to the toe. Now, I gave you my initial reactions as in, you know, I laughed and then I started thinking of conspiracy theories, but I don't really have any concrete evidence to back it up. And then I started thinking, this guy really pulled out with a broken fucking pinky toe. And I want to shit on him for it. I desperately want to shit on him for it, you know, because he's shit on other people. And I think dos Anjos has the right to make fun of him. I think Islam has the right to make fun of him. But I just feel like I understand. I understand as much as I want to say, what is this guy doing? He's pulling out for a pinky toe. How could he do this? What a joke. I think the UFC's pissed that he pulled out with a pinky toe injury. Make no mistake about it. What was going on behind the scenes, I think Conor knew he was going to be out most likely anyway, but it was Dana and Hunter Campbell putting pressure on him for that. Oh, we made over a $20 million gate. The pay-per-view sales are already through the roof. Conor, you got to fight, you got to fight, you got to fight. I think Dana and Hunter are pissed at Conor. They're like, you pulled out with a pinky toe. You took away this massive payday for us because of a pinky toe. But in my opinion, I understand. And it's kind of, it all comes back to Conor's statement here. You know, This next walk has got to be, and it will be 100% Conor McGregor. The fans deserve it. And I agree with him. I wasn't all that excited to see Chandler versus Conor to begin with. But how much less excited are we going to be if we know Conor's going in compromised? And Conor McGregor, former UFC champion, double champion at one point in time, we're going to bring him back after a 3-year layoff from a catastrophic injury. And now he's going to go into the fight compromised when he has 2 fights left on his deal. I hate to say it. I really, truly hate to say it. I understand why Conor would pull out of this fight. There's got to be balancing issues and footwork issues. And more importantly, it's going to be tough to train. Maybe the fight night, he's going to go out there. He's going to have the adrenaline going. Maybe, somehow get an exemption for some type of pain medication that maybe wouldn't affect. I don't know if it would be. It'd probably be considered some type of performance enhancer. But there's ways to kind of grit through. But it's going to be hard for him to train for the 3 weeks into the lead up of the fight. So you got so much on the line. Coming back from a 3-year layoff, coming back from a broken leg. You're going to come in compromised with a broken pinky toe and not having trained for the last 3 weeks. And then you go in there, you get starched by Michael Chandler. Now you have 1 fight left on your deal. It doesn't put you in a very good position for negotiating leverage. So I get it. Why set yourself up for failure when you've already waited this long? Why not wait another 2 months? Why not wait another 3 months? What's another 3 months? You've been sitting down on the sidelines for 3 years versus the consequences of going in there and then you're pissed off at yourself afterwards because you felt compromised. You go in there and you get KO'd and you're like wondering, well, maybe I shouldn't have went in with that broken toe. How many times have we seen people go into fights and then lose and then they complain afterwards they were injured? I get it. As much as I would love to shit on him and crap on him for pulling out with a pinky toe, and I'm sure people would be down in the comments doing it and saying, Joey, what? It's a pinky toe, Joey. Think of the circumstances. Any other circumstances, okay, fight with the broken pinky toe. But 3-year layoff, coming back from a broken leg, fighting Michael Chandler, 2 fights left on your deal, it's just not a good position to be in. You want to wait and be fully healthy. You owe it to the fans. Again, I talked about this before the fight was canceled. I said, look, I think this fight's going to be canceled, but if not, there's going to be a massive, just something looming over top of this fight, knowing that most likely Conor is injured going into this fight. If Chandler goes out there and starches him, okay, he starches him, but we're going to be like, oh, Conor was injured. There's a built-in excuse there. So I understand Conor McGregor pulling out. I think he's going to get a decent amount of criticism, but let me just tell you this. If it was Islam Makhachev, we would never hear the end of it. If this was Khamzat Chimaev was hospitalized, and then there was a rumor that he had food poisoning, which food poisoning can be very serious, and people were shitting on him for that. If this was Islam or Khamzat or, a Habib, you bet your ass the Conor McGregor fanboys would shit on them way worse than they're going to shit on someone like Conor McGregor. But I'm sure Conor McGregor will get his fair share of criticism as well. But I'm not going to sit here and criticize Conor for it, to be quite honest. I get it. At where he's at in his career, I would pull out too. I would not go in there not 100%. Coming back with such high stakes, you can't go in there compromised. You can't go in there at 80%. You can't go in there not training for 3 weeks, which I think is most important. Being, kind of sidelined for 3 weeks, you're going to go in there feeling rusty, and now you're going to get starched after 3 years off, and you're in a horrible spot in your career. So I totally understand Conor McGregor pulling out. Now, the next thing I want to take a look at is Chael Sonnen. And I hate to even listen to Chael Sonnen. This is what I call a rich, poor guy, because he collects checks from the UFC to shill for him, but he also pumps out 26 videos a day on YouTube, because I don't think the money that he has coming in, even though it's probably a substantial amount, matches the amount going out. I've said this before. I think Chael Sonnen is the definition of a rich, poor guy. But recently he was making a lot of statements. Conor McGregor's going into rehab. And people were asking me about this. And while I thought it sounded, okay, that could be possible, I said, look, if Chael Sonnen's saying it, I don't believe it at all. It's not a reliable source. Chael Sonnen, if you don't know this, if you're watching this video, you're just finding out, Chael Sonnen is not a reliable source. So now we know it is very evident that Chael Sonnen was lying because it was a pinky toe. Chael Sonnen admits it right here, and I'm going to explain to you his motives if it's not very clear to you. Because after the whole Ariel fiasco where he was, breaking it down to us on the MMA Hour what was going on with Conor and people didn't understand by reading between the lines, I'm going to break down for you what exactly Chael is saying here. But let's listen to him talk about Conor McGregor and the rehab narrative that he started in the broken pinky toe.
Listen to Chael, who says I am reaching out to help and better myself. Listen to me. Who had to pull out of a borderline illegal fist fight opposite Michael Chandler, who's one tough son of a bitch, because my pinky toe is discolored.
Already minimizing it. Oh, my pinky toe is discolored. But I'm going to explain to you what he's doing here. Listen to the rest of it.
You can listen to my account, which builds and helps Conor McGregor. Or you can listen to Conor's account, which makes him look like a little bitch. I would rather you think good things of Conor. I would rather you saw Conor as somebody who realized he has a problem and asked somebody else to help.
So there you have it. So what is Chael Sonnen doing here? He was essentially running cover for the UFC and Conor McGregor when he was not asked. He was saying, look, the MMA community isn't going to like this. There's going to be backlash. People are going to dislike Conor. People are going to shit on Conor for this. So let's make up a fake narrative that he went to rehab. No one can shit on a man for going to rehab because he knows the pinky toe story, while true, is going to make Conor McGregor look like a little bitch. So this guy was shilling. This guy was shilling for Conor in the UFC. And I know most of us already know this, but there is people out there who think Chael Sonnen is a reliable source. And this dude straight up lies nonstop to the MMA community, and that's why his YouTube channel is dying. You know, this video was released 4 hours ago. You can't see it. It doesn't even have 30,000 views yet. And I know people are probably going to point out to my views or whatever. This guy has, 1.28 million subscribers. His channel is dying. That's why he's posting so many videos, because he's desperate for that ad revenue. So he can't get the views up on his videos, so he's got to post more and more and more so he can make more money, because the checks from the UFC for the shilling is not enough. But this was just him shilling. He's admitting it right now. Well, what would look better? Him going to rehab where no one can criticize him for it and say, good job, attaboy, Conor, or him with a broken pinky toe where he looks like an absolute puss? So Chandler, without even consulting with Conor, without even consulting maybe even with the UFC, he's out there making excuses for Conor McGregor and hoping that nobody would say anything, and then people would be like, oh, okay, well, that's probably it. And just starting that rumor and narrative that people run with. This is what drives me nuts. People run with this shit from Chael Sonnen. So I just want to expose him here as an absolute UFC shill, Dana White sycophant, and it's just beyond annoying. Now, the next statement I want to take a look at was from Conor McGregor as well. And a lot of people sent me this because of some statements I've made in the past, so we're going to briefly break this down. But Conor said, Chandler is getting paid 10 times of what his contract states for other fights, meaning he would need to fight 10 times to make what he would make in this one. I'm the one. For those saying he could fight 2 to 3 times by now, etc., he needs 10 to break even with this check. Look, we don't have the information on this, but I'm going to tell you right now, this is not true. Chandler is not going to make 10 times what he would make normally to fight Conor McGregor. There's no incentive for the UFC to pay him that much. I've told you guys before, Red Panty Night originated because of pay-per-view points. So if you were a champion, if you got the Conor McGregor fight, you get a cut of the pay-per-view points. Conor McGregor is all the drawing power for your title fight. You're still getting a cut of the pay-per-view points because it's in your contract as a champion. And now I know some people are going to mention, well, what about Diaz? What about Poirier? They made a shit ton of money. They got a Red Panty Night. Well, in particular, their Red Panty Nights was for Diaz in the rematch and for Poirier in the trilogy. And why, might you ask, did they get a big increase for those fights, even though we don't have the exact numbers? Because they were operating and negotiating from a position of power with leverage. Diaz upset McGregor. McGregor needed that fight back. McGregor wanted that fight back. The UFC wanted that fight. It was going to be a huge fight. It was going to sell a lot of pay-per-views. So Nate Diaz kind of had him by the balls. And there were some public negotiations going around for that rematch. Same thing with the trilogy for Poirier. So Poirier kind of had him by the balls. Michael Chandler, if I had to guess, I found some sources saying, oh, he made this much, he made that much. But all the sources were very shaky, so I'm not going to share them with you. I don't know for sure they're reliable sources. But if I had to speculate, Michael Chandler's probably making somewhere between $500,000 and $800,000 a fight. I would assume that because I believe he got a decent contract coming over from Bellator, because he was exciting and because he did have some name value. And on top of that, he's been the utmost company man, and he goes out there and puts on an exciting fight every single time, which is most important to UFC and Dana White. So I believe if McGregor's ever, or Chandler's ever renegotiated his contract, he's probably gotten more and more and more. So let's say he's making $500,000. You're telling me 10 times that they're paying him $5 million? I don't believe that for 1 second. Now, what do we have for disclosed purses, okay? This is Conor McGregor's disclosed purses. This was revealed in the antitrust lawsuit. It was on Bloody Elbow, but Bloody Elbow deleted the information. And I know these are fights from a while ago, but against Chad Mendes, he made $2.5 million, just over $2.5 million. For Jose Aldo, he made $4.5 million. For Diaz 1, he made $5.5 million. For Diaz 2, he made a little bit more than $5.5 million. For Alvarez, he made almost $7 million. And I know, again, that's 2016, 2015. There is no way, shape, or form, even with inflation, that Chandler is going to bank close to what McGregor used to make. There is no way, shape, or form. What I've told you guys many of times, what Chandler is banking on is the exposure from the fight, to sign more sponsors. And if he wins, he's thinking the kind of the star power, the rub from Conor McGregor. If he goes out there and starches Conor McGregor on a massive pay-per-view, that's going to elevate him into superstardom. Now, that remains to be seen whether or not that would happen. I don't believe that it would happen. But Conor McGregor, first off, is not a reliable source, okay? He's not a reliable source to say, oh, Chandler's definitely going to be making 10 times what he would have made otherwise. So you're telling me the UFC told Conor McGregor exactly what Chandler's making prior to him, and they're telling Conor McGregor exactly what he's making now? So that's the first flaw right there. I do not believe that Michael Chandler is getting pay-per-view points. Colby Covington wasn't even getting pay-per-view points. And in some of his fights, he was part of that drawing power. You know, I know Jorge Masvidal was the A side, but Colby brought something to that. Now, that pay-per-view didn't do ultimately that well, but we know Colby Covington did not get pay-per-view points for that. So you think Michael Chandler, who has no leverage, he might as well be a broomstick. He's not bringing any real value to the pay-per-view. And I know people are going to be like, what, Joey? He's so exciting, blah, blah, blah. I agree. And I think Chandler should make $5 million. I think Chandler should make a significant sum for fighting Conor McGregor. But there's no incentive for the UFC to give him this huge, massive payday, because at the end of the day, Chandler's desperate to have this fight. And he doesn't bring anything. Like, if you put Chandler in there or you put Tony Ferguson in there, it's not really going to change the pay-per-view buys. Honestly, Tony Ferguson might bring more pay-per-view buys because the build-up would be more entertaining. Okay? So there's no incentive. The UFC's not just handing out $5, $10 million paydays out of the kindness of their hearts. My guess for McGregor for this fight card, you know, a base purse, and this is pure speculation, he's probably making 15 to 25 million. You know, and that's craziness considering what the event would generate in terms of pay-per-view sales and gates. But there is no way, shape, or form that Michael Chandler is making 10 times what he made. Now, if we have some information that proves that otherwise, and he's making a significant amount, let's say he's making 500,000, so he's getting 10 times, which would be 5 million. Okay, maybe it was worth waiting. Maybe it was worth waiting then. But at the end of the day, let's operate under the assumption that Conor's telling the truth, which he's not a reliable source. I've already said that. 10 times 0, what's 10 times 0? Oh, that's 0. Because the chances are Chandler probably waited around to never get the fight with Conor McGregor, as we've seen in this initial statement where he said Chandler or not. So, you know, just to show you a little bit more, here's the Conor purses we have already went through. Here's some disclosed purses for UFC 298. Let's scroll down a bit. Look, Merab got 210. Henry Cejudo got 150. You know, Anthony Hernandez got 132. Go up here. Paulo Costa 250. Robert Whittaker 400. And that's with the win bonus. Volkanovski 750. Ilia Topuria 350. And I get it. There's discretionary bonuses and pay-per-view points and this and that. You really think Chandler's going to get more than Alexander Volkanovski? I highly doubt that. You know, I highly, highly doubt that. You know, if anything, Chandler will get close to this number of like 750 and not get pay-per-view points, where Volkanovski gets this number but also gets some pay-per-view points. So there's just some more kind of information. These are disclosed purses that we know. Chandler's not making more than these guys. So he sat out for 2 years. He could have fought 2-3 times. He could have fought 2-3 times and made more money. He could have fought 4 or 5 times, to be quite honest, in 2 years. He could have fought 3 times a year. That would have been 6 times. So I think this statement from Conor McGregor, it kind of caught me off guard, but then I feel like he's just trying to manipulate Michael Chandler publicly even more. And I'm wondering if the UFC is telling Conor, oh, we're going to move on with Chandler now. We're going to give Chandler a different fight. I'm wondering. That's starting the wheels turning. I'm not ready to die on that hill yet, but I'm wondering if the UFC is telling Conor, look, we're moving on with Chandler. We're going to give him a different fight. And the reason I say this, and the reason I think this is the beginning of like a theory, is I don't trust anything Michael Chandler says, but he's starting to tweet out these kind of cryptic things. You know, he quotes Chandler versus Holloway and puts the little salute sign. Then he says, "Bravo, Mike Foxtrot," which is BMF, right? And then he puts this, "Blessed man forever." And to be honest, while I'm not all that interested in a Chandler-Holloway fight, because I'd rather Topuria versus Holloway, the UFC owes Chandler because they kind of ruined his career. So a potential fight against Holloway would be massive. And it would piss Conor off if Chandler moved on and got the Holloway fight, because I think Conor wants that BMF. Mick G, the real BMF. So this is just the beginning of a theory, but there is a chance. Let's say Volkanovski, Topuria, maybe they're pushing back the date Topuria's next title defense, and maybe they're booking Topuria versus Volk 2, and maybe they're pushing it back because there were some rumors of the Sphere, but then after that, when's it going to happen? Maybe they're pushing it back so they can have it in Spain, so they can have Topuria's first title defense in Spain. And in that case, Holloway's kind of left up in the air. Well, what would be a big fight for Holloway would be Michael Chandler. It's not, the biggest fight ever, but after that crazy KO win against Justin Gaethje, this would be a fun fight for the fans. And what would kind of give Michael Chandler a little bit extra, a big fight and an opportunity to kind of win a belt, even though it's a fake belt, would kind of be like we're sorry about stringing you along for 2 years, Chandler, with the Conor McGregor fight. Because even Dana White said recently, I showed this in my recent video, I'll link that video down in the description, that Conor may never fight again. So this is just kind of the beginning of a theory. I'm always just open and honest with you guys, and this is kind of what I'm starting to think maybe. I'm not ready to die on that hill, but I figured I would share it with you guys. The last thing I want to take a look at, and the reason I think Chandler could be moving on finally, on the advice of Dana and the UFC, is because this is the shit that Conor's posting on social media. First off, look at this. He looks like the guy that was in his Twitter likes right now, the way he's touching himself, okay? First off, this is a 36-year-old man. This man's posting images of himself touching himself while his wife is looking at him. I mean, that is beyond bizarre to post that on your Instagram at 36 years old in your late 30s. Your late 30s, you're posting this on Instagram. I mean, it's honestly quite embarrassing, especially when you have multiple children that are going to grow up and see this shit. And then on top of that, the caption for this, and I don't know if you guys can't actually see it in the frame, but he says, fuck it, I'm getting myself that Bugatti now. It's my birthday in a few weeks. So what does that mean? Ultimately, I think Conor McGregor may never fight again. I think he may try to get out of his contract and go off to Saudi Arabia and get handpicked matchups. And I just think there's just so many hints that Conor McGregor, he wants the fame, he wants the admiration, but I'm not sure he even wants to step in there anymore. He says that he does, but he's got millions of dollars, not to be Dana White. He has millions of dollars. He has yachts. He has Bugattis. He has this, Proper 12. He has, stock in that or whatever. I know he's technically sold the company. I'm not sold that Conor McGregor ever fights in the UFC again, especially against a killer like Michael Chandler, who's in the gym every day, lifting heavy weights with one dude on his mind. But let me know what you guys think of all this down in the comments. What do you guys think of Conor pulling out with a broken pinky toe? That's the one question I want to know. Let me know what you guys think of everything I said in this video. Like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and thank you so much for watching.